Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Byeong-Yong at HD Korea Shipbuilding and Offshore Engineering. Please understand that I make a presentation in Korean language. It is much easier for me and it would be more efficient to share my ideas to you. Can I? Thank you.
And as introduced, I'd like to share with you a perspective from shipbuilders regarding new technologies and trends. KSOE is a subholding company within the HD Hyundai in charge of shipbuilding. Simply put, we have Hyundai Heavy Industry, Hyundai Mipo a dockyard. So they are the subsidiaries of my company, KSOE. Recently, we won orders to build methanol-powered vessels, and there has been a lot of emphasis on the role to be played by shipbuilders. So we are carrying out our work in order to deliver first alternative fuel-powered vessels. So I'd like to skip over our slide on decarbonization, which has been dealt with sufficiently. So there has been a lot of talk about CO2, renewable energy, and hydrogen energy carrier, but there's one thing I'd like to talk about. In recent trends, what is noteworthy is climate is no longer an independent issue. It is closely interlinked with trade. As you are well aware, the IRA was passed in the U.S., which has promoted the U.S. industries in the U.S., and CBAM has a huge impact in the EU region. As you are well aware, CBAM is not just about reducing CO2 emissions. CBAM is serving as a protection barrier to protect markets and industries in the EU. So my point is, climate is not about cutting CO2 emissions to protect the environment. Climate is interlinked with issues that are political and environmental and economical. So climate is related to tangible benefits. So developing climate technology will be picking up in the future. So let's move on to shipbuilding. If you take a look at decarbonization and energy, energy can be viewed in two different ways in the shipbuilding industry. First, we can look at our cargo. We can also look at fuel. So these are two points of view in terms of carbon neutrality. So we have to have two separate discussions based upon cargo and fuel in order to have discussion on carbon neutrality, because cargo and fuel are driven by different motivations. And the cargo topic is mainly driven by our consumers. So power plants and users have demand, and the government have energy policy, and these have an influence on our cargo. What about fuel? So we build and deliver ships according to orders by ship owners. And fuel is something we can determine in shipbuilding industry, but it is also related to feedback from other industries and government policy. You can see McKinsey's analysis of greenhouse gas emission reductions by industry. In Europe, most industries have done a good job at cutting greenhouse gas emissions, but there's one industry that stands out, that is transportation. In transportation, CO2 emission reduction has been less pronounced. It is not a lack of willingness. So it is a lot more economical to reduce CO2 emissions as large CO2 emitters, but it is not easy to further cut CO2 emissions from a sector that does not produce a lot of CO2 emissions in the first place. Still, the transportation sector stands out as a sore thumb. Fuel EU Maritime has been implemented for the EU to strengthen regulations on CO2 emissions. And the IMO has followed suit. I'm not sure about the dependency between the two, but at MEPC 80, the IMO announced their ambition to reach net zero of well to wake by 2050. So achieving net zero by 2050 is important, and the basis will be well to wake. So we need to take a look at energy itself that goes into vessels. So how should we respond to such changes in policy? All we can rely on is technology. We have to use technology to achieve these stringent targets. Of course, policy changes do not happen in a way that is unilateral. It's not that the government comes out overnight to impose such regulations. That is why we have a timeline until 2050 in order to phase in such regulations. We need to think about technological readiness and the economic situation in order to reach a compromise and narrow gaps between regulators and the industry. And we are working on climate technology and decarbonization technology in our sector. That said, it is easier said than done to develop technology. We have no perfect fuel in terms of carbon neutrality. Ammonia can be toxic. E-methanol can have a high cost, and hydrogen has a low energy density, and LNG, our favorite fuel, has an issue of methane slip. So this may sound too ambiguous, but energy of the future will not be one single fuel. The future lies in energy and mix. So it is the reality we have to confront. No country or no government will not focus on a single fuel in determining their energy mix. They'll be using a little bit of both, including LNG and other fuels. And depending on ship type, different fuels can be the best options. So for ammonia, methanol, and biofuel can be a fuel of choice for vessels with long journeys. The graph is not the one I created. It was created by McKinsey about 2 to 3 years ago. And there is high uncertainty regarding energy. But things around 2 to 3 years ago were not very different than things today. Overall, we are moving in the same direction. It's just that the pace fluctuates too significantly. And when it comes to coastal ships and passenger vessels, safety and cleanliness are important. This is where hydrogen and methanol can be a fuel of choice. Which fuel will be dominant between the two will depend on which energy infrastructure is in place in that market. And with stronger regulations, carbon neutral fuel at grain port will be important. And in offshore sector, using carbon neutral energy will be important. This is where retrofit technology comes in. As mentioned, uncertainty is a very tall challenge. And as a shipbuilder, we have a lot on our shoulders. We have to look at every possible alternative fuel scenario to be ready. So this may sound too difficult or too inefficient. Still, we can do it. As you're well aware, methanol and ammonia-fueled vessels are the ones where we have already won orders. For methanol, the first ship will be delivered in 2024. And in terms of ammonia, we are concerned about toxicity. When you talk about risks, it is no longer a risk when it can be controlled. Large vessels serve as a means of transportation as well as a factory. So we are engaging in developing the safe use of ammonia. Still, crew members are concerned about toxicity of ammonia, so we are developing high-level safety system with regards to ammonia, which can be offered as a technical option. And we have some way to go in terms of hydrogen. As I mentioned earlier, hydrogen will not be useful for large vessels. It can be useful for medium-sized vessels, and we are developing a hydrogen DF engine, and we are planning to commercialize it by 2025. We'll be doing a POC next year before commercialization scheduled for 2025. And there is a lot of uncertainty over a fuel, but there's one thing that is clear. Whatever the fuel will be choosing, the fuel cost will be rising, whether it is LNG or fossil fuels. The fuel cost will be rising together with CO2 taxes. Whether we order ships, we need to focus more on OPEX together with CAPEX. High energy efficiency will be a key priority in shipbuilding. Rotor energy recovery system and other systems will be deployed more widely in ships. We are receiving inquiries regarding those technologies from companies that used to be not that interested in those technologies. And ORC, standing for Organic Ranking Cycle, is a kind of energy recovery system. The ORC is being the commercialization of ORC has not been very active due to a lack of ROI. So due to a low ROI, ORC has not been deployed massively, but fuel costs are rising, and there's a need for vessels to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. So energy recovery system will be deployed more widely together with energy saving systems. Methane-fueled container ships, for those ships, ship owners are looking to deploy the ORC. And with a widespread use of carbon-neutral energy and ORC and other climate technologies that are being used by other industries can be introduced to the shipbuilding industry. So we have energy-efficient technology. Still, ship owners provide training based upon a single fuel. They are based upon the same system in order to reduce their maintenance costs and operation costs. But they are required to use multiple fuels. If they are required to use multiple fuels, ship owners find it very difficult to manage all this. And it is challenging to hire a talent, whatever the industry. And after providing training for new staffs, and you'll be seeing the introduction of new fuel in 2 years, which can make the prior training useless. Decarbonization technology will be linked with digital technology. Instead of operators operating the vessel, and autonomous technology can be used to operate different types of vessels. I talked about energy efficiency earlier. Onboard total energy management system or CO2 management system will be automated in the future. Decarbonization will go beyond decarbonization to be interlinked with AI and autonomous technology. And AI and autonomous technologies used to be a nice thing to have, but we need to seriously consider introducing those technologies now. So far, I talked about demand. Let me speak about carbon neutral era. Will it be able to see green hydrogen matching gray hydrogen in terms of cost and achieve carbon neutrality by 2050? If we were to move toward carbon neutrality, we should be able to transport energy massively. And oils are produced in a number of locations that enables maritime transport. And As you can see from the graph on the left, green indicates green hydrogen, their production cost. Gray indicates the production cost of gray hydrogen. We have solid lines and dotted lines. Dotted lines indicate the production cost at ideal locations, and solid lines indicate production costs at not optimal locations. The gap between the two will not be reduced in the future. No matter how much we are trying to use renewable energy, conditions to produce renewable energy can be different from one location to another. It is impossible to source 100% of our energy from renewable energy in Korea. And in terms of hydrogen, we need to liquefy hydrogen for transport. We can liquefy hydrogen or ammonia for transport. And CO2 carrier, ammonia carrier, and hydrogen carrier will be emerging as new ship types. CO2 carriers are already in operation. CO2 carriers and ammonia carriers, if you were to define these, ammonia has been good transported by LPG, by vessels. CO2 has already been transported by companies like Coca-Cola. It's just that the size of these ships is very small. Instead of transporting these as feedstock, we need to transport these as energy. So we need large carriers dedicated to ammonia, or we need vessels dedicated to CO2 transport. We are planning to, we won an order for 22K CO2 carrier this year, and we are facing more uncertainty with regards to hydrogen carriers. But ultimately, hydrogen will be the energy of the future. But there's uncertainty when the market for hydrogen will come. But we have pioneers who want to try hydrogen vessels. Global energy companies we are collaborating with are planning to deploy hydrogen vessels in the 2030s. So which comes first, technological development or creation of the market? So it's a chicken and egg problem. But we are shooting for developing hydrogen-powered vessels in the 2030s. It is something that has not been existed before. And we need to enter into a contract in 2027 in order to meet our timeline of launching hydrogen-powered vessels in the 2030s. So this is the roadmap we are working on, and we'll be establishing a concept regarding an 80-ton hydrogen carrier. And the concept is viewed in a positive light by our client companies. So we are forming partnership to develop hydrogen-fueled vessels. Conclusion: we often talk about marine decarbonization, but marine decarbonization is influenced by outside factors. 2 points here. First, shipbuilders have a little chance to experience these outside factors. We mainly communicate with ship owners. There should be exchange between different industries for us to gain more insight. And second, there are outside drivers that are not just related to the environment, but also to politics and the economy. Changes can come to us unexpectedly. Conversely, changes might come to us slower than we thought. And that does not mean our hands are tied. We need to be proactive in terms of developing technology. We need to develop a carbon neutral technology and high efficiency technology. If we can take the lead in technological development, they can help us accelerate our journey to decarbonization. This is the role I believe that should be played by shipbuilders. Thank you.